how to make $250,000 a year up into the seven figures with little to no risk. Here we go. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new, my name is Hamza and I invest in startups. Before we even talk about the business, ask yourself, what exactly are you passionate about? Don't get into something purely to make money. It has to align with your mission and your vision. There's a really good podcast with Ali Abdul and Dan Priestley recently. They talk about the OMV, the origin story, mission, and vision. I'll put a link down below. Definitely watch that. But let's get back into it. So before I go into the details of what businesses you can start up, I'm going to ask you, what is entrepreneurship? The textbook definition is that it's a business that you start up that takes on financial risk in hopes of churning a profit. Key word there being hope. Now, ask yourself, what differentiates your business from others? What really sets you apart? Unless if you're solving a real problem or something that's not being done well or at all, most businesses actually would tend to fail because of this. Now, you could go into the details of like how you create a brand, how you have to have a person behind it and all that. And any business come true, that will may be true, especially ones with like higher risk or with that are heavy on capital with really thin margins, but still churn a profit because of the branding behind it. But today, I'm going to detail 3 businesses for you with either little to no startup capital, with $50,000, and then with $200,000. And the way I'm going to do it is lay the entire foundation and groundwork for you to replicate this if you like it or not. It aligns with your vision, and at the same time, hedge against risk. So literally, if you're investing with capital other than your time, it would be conducive for you to move forward because you're hedging against a risk with actual assets in the game. So all of these businesses I'm going to talk to you about, I'll even discuss how you can then scale it well into the 7 or even 8 figures and come up with an exit strategy. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make a separate video just on that, on how to scale. So we'll keep that aside, but this one's really going to focus on how you can start a business that makes at least $250,000 a year in profit, not revenue, profit, starting from year 1. All right, let's go. The first business is going to be yacht charter. This is a business that's overlooked by a lot of people just because most of the yachts that are being chartered, if you see around the world, they're renting out yachts or chartering yachts. It kind of hedges the risk for a lot of yacht owners for reducing their overhead costs, but you can actually get one to really just churn a profit. And it's not really a good model to like buy a boat and then just offer a few days, because like, let's say for example, if you want to charter it out, you have clients that want it and then it's not available because the owner wants to use it. Unless if you have a designated yacht specifically for business purposes, they don't really turn a really good profit margin, truth be told. They're usually just doing it just to reduce their overhead costs of owning one, because it is expensive to own. Let's not beat around the bush. It is expensive to own and operate a yacht. But I'm going to tell you exactly how you can do it, where you can actually be profitable doing so. All right, so first things first, you're going to need to buy a yacht. You're probably going to say,
Hamza, well, I don't have $1 million to buy a yacht.
Well, you don't need millions of dollars. First of all, relax. There's financing options available, and realistically speaking, you're probably only going to need about $100,000 to $150,000 to get a decent yacht, about almost $1 million. So this is how I would do it. Go on Yacht World. I'll put the link down below. Obviously, there's several brokerages out there. This is just one of them. You can see that there's actually good 25 meter or about 60 to 75 feet yachts that are in good condition, that are probably a few years old, so they've already depreciated quite a bit from their original value, and more often than not, they've been recently refitted to adjust with modern times. In fact, you could probably find yachts that are less than 10 years old, between the $800,000 to $1 million or euros, that are outstanding yachts that would be perfect for this business model. Why do I say this particular size? Just because there's actually a gap in the market. The small boats are good, but they don't churn enough margin for you, realistically speaking. There's a lot of variables that come into play. One thing being location. Before we get into location, we're talking about pricing. Now, let's say you don't have 900,000 euros or dollars lying around to buy one. Why did I say 100 to 150,000? More often than not, especially if you live in the Western world, you can easily find credit. So there's financing options where you could put somewhere between 10 and 20% down. Let's just say safe figure being 20%. You may even put down less, but let's just say 20% down on a $900,000 boat that you found in pristine condition that doesn't need any rework or maintenance to be done. All right, so you have a $900,000 yacht that you found. It could be like something, maybe an Azimuth, Lazara, Sunseeker, one of these. You could usually find around this price, and to finance it with 20%, 100% down. So you're about, let's just say 180,000 then you're putting down. So $180,000 down, you've put it in towards your down payment, and now you have a yacht. All right, so the next step would be, obviously you've done your homework and due diligence, everything's in pristine condition. The other thing you're going to require is some running capital. I would say somewhere between 3 and 6 months. Now I'll get into a little more detail of what that running capital looks like. You're going to hire a crew. A captain would be essential, and then maybe 1 or 2 crew members depending on the size of the boat that you get as well. A captain's pay is usually about $1,000 per foot. So let's say if it's 60 foot, then your captain's salary would be roughly about $60,000 that you'd have to set aside. So for the first few months until you get things going, let's just say 6 months of running capital would be about $30,000. So now you're about $210,000 roughly into this venture. Let's say you haven't spent it, $30,000 again you're putting aside for salaries for that captain alone. Now the other expenditure that you have to account for is maintenance. A maintenance for a boat like this typically is about 10% a year of the total cost of the boat. Let's say if it's $900,000, it would be about $90,000 that you would set aside for maintenance work. Let's say 210, now 90,000 there, you're about 300,000 in. So that's about the gist of it. There's additional expenses too, like insurance, docking fees, things like that. But usually they're not a huge expense. I would budget probably another somewhere between $10,000 to $15,000 for the first 6 months for that. So the costs, as you can see, are racking up. Now, before you even buy the boat, this is the first thing you're going to have to do is where do you want to offer the services with your boat? Because that's going to depend on where the boat's delivered, whether it's Miami, LA, the Bahamas. These are all really good markets. I'm not saying that you can offer it, let's say in the Ozarks, maybe that might be a good place for your boat, but again, those are very seasonal locations and usually there's not much demand year round. You want to pick a place that it's decent demand year round, even with competition. Let's just say, for example, you pick the Bahamas. So now, in addition to that, now there are some legal fees where the boat's registered, the flag, things like that. Your broker will walk you through those steps in getting that registered. So do your due diligence there as well. So there's a lot of research involved in this business prior to getting into it. But again, all of those steps are going to be aligned and you'll find assistance from the yacht broker as well. Let's just say, for sake of simplicity, about $320,000 into this, realistically speaking, that you've set a budget aside, whether you've spent it on the original payment, insurance, docking, you're $320,000 in. All right, now, how the hell do you make money with this? So let's just account for the overhead expenses again. You have your loan payment, which is roughly about $6,000 a month. You have your docking fees. That's going to be location dependent on where you dock the boat and where you're offering the services. You have your salaries for your captain and your crew, whether they're part-time or full-time. You have your maintenance. Remember the 10% that I said that you set aside for the year. The charter agency, now, if you're not going to be marketing or renting this out yourself, most likely you're going to be having another charter agency that does it for you. Again, the brokerage could help you out there as well. But you typically, I'd say industry average, let's just say 20% is what they take in from the revenue that's generated from the rental. The marketing, I would probably spend another $1,000. Now, you don't have to necessarily run ads. I don't think ads are important, but offer it on platforms like Airbnb. Think outside the box on where people that would want to rent your boat. Definitely create a social media page for this boat. Make an experience around it. See what other yacht owners are doing or not doing and offer those services. Maybe they're offering it in some other markets that may not be being necessarily done in the location that you choose. Let's say in the Bahamas, they don't have a lot of yacht owners you see tie-in event management. So like, let's say events, parties, things like that. You want to offer, like, cater to those things. Create your own website or like a web platform where you can easily leverage Google SEO. So if someone is vacationing in the Bahamas, they go type in yacht rentals, your choice should be the first one that comes up. So marketing budget, about $1,000 for that. I would exclusively just focus on SEO and working with other partners within the area and leveraging them in order to market your boat. And then fuel, catering events, things like that, those are all customer dependent, so I'm not going to add that there. So all in all, you're roughly about, let's say with insurance and things like that added in, let's just say somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 a month just in simple overhead costs. Wow. So now you have a boat, you have $30,000 a month that you're paying. Now, how the hell do you make money with this? Typically, if you're marketing it right, a boat of that size generate roughly about $3,000 to $7,000 a day in revenue. That's a lot. Now, having that said, I would initially price it with the market, but offer some additional incentives to make it more compelling for someone to actually go in and rent your boat out. offer additional services complimentary. Don't change the price. Offer additional services complimentary within that price, so it gives you that edge over all the competition. With that being said, most yacht owners or most charters are able to rent it out, let's say 40 to 50%. Let's just say be conservative, 33% occupancy rates, meaning it's rented out 10 days out of the month. So now let's say an average $5,000 a day for 10 days out of the month, you're generating $50,000 in revenue. Amazing. So let's say if our overhead cost was roughly about $25,000, you're generating $25,000 a month in profit from just renting it out 10 days out of the month. That's pretty amazing. So if we extrapolate that with $25,000 for 12 months, that's $300,000 a year. Your original budget that you set aside is already more than compensated within the first year alone. And so now this is a running model. As you grow, you can definitely reinvest back into the business, add additional supplemental services, create more revenue streams, scale the business, add more boats. Now, let's say $300,000 may not seem a lot to some people. Imagine if you have 10 of these, that's $3 million a year. It's pretty damn good. And then not just to mention there's an exit strategy for that, but I'll get to that in the very end. So now it brings us to the next business. Now, the original one we said about $200,000 to $300,000 range. The second business, let's say that you don't have that much, you have about $50,000. What can I do to get into a business that generates $250,000 a year with $50,000 in my pocket right now? Well, coming from a healthcare background, this business seems really appealing to me, and that's IV clinics. What do I mean by that? A lot of people don't know about this because it's a new, wouldn't say a fad, it's not popular amongst the middle class. Now, there's people who've been getting IV therapy treatments for decades. I would even argue maybe even over 100 years. People get IV treatment for a lot of things. Some of the antibiotics are given intravenously. There's a new realization that's come to existence and how IV therapy can be used to cure hangovers. It can be used for anti-aging, boosting immunity, cognitive thinking, even depression. So there's a lot of benefits for IV therapy. Now, how are you going to hedge against risk with this business when you first start out is you're going to reduce your overhead costs by not having a typical brick and mortar. You're going to be mobile, and that's actually advantageous for you. It sets you apart from other businesses because now with something as private as IV treatment, the ultimate experience behind privacy, you're going to have the nurse come to your home in privacy, give your treatment, and be on your way. Now, there are a little bit more regulatory requirements for this. Now, if it's done in the United States, every state's going to be different. Some states actually don't even require a physician to be overseeing or governing this entire entity. You could actually do it explicitly through even a nurse practitioner. Again, you'd have to oversee your laws, but within the states or abroad, it can be easily done without having a physician as the controlling body. Even, let's say, for example, if you don't come from a healthcare background, you can hire someone and leverage their license to run the business. So it can be easily done by anyone. So how do you start this? You really have to study your market. Now, let's say LA, London, New York are going to be very different for some of the rural. Most of these services are being offered already in boutique style environments or aesthetic clinics, but in rural areas, it may not be even offered at all. I think the more important thing is you're probably going to have to educate a lot of people on the benefits of the service in some areas where people don't know about it. So you really have to study your market and where you're going to offer these services. So we talked about location, education. One more thing to add on education. As you're educating customers, your patient base or your customer base is going to build, and then you will get more referrals. And that's going to be your primary marketing leverage here is your existing customer base. If I have to talk about ads, I feel like it's like the modern day courses. More often than not, I see a lot of YouTubers and people with the social media presence are offering courses. Ads back in the day in 2017, 2018 were generating a lot of traffic, a lot of revenue, and then ads got very expensive. Courses are now in the past couple of years have been very pricey. They have things like Skillshare, things like that offering these courses. As the years go on, the returns from that is getting lower and lower. So I'm not saying that you need some sort of ads or anything like this to offer to generate more revenue. Sorry for sidetracking a bit, but you're going to generate more revenue by literally leveraging your existing client base or your customers, or in this case, your patients. In addition to your existing customers, you're also going to partner with the other clinics too, because a lot of other clinics want to offer these services, but they don't have the bandwidth to offer, let's say, home-based services. services. So again, go with the profit sharing model, and you can actually really get a strong customer base by making friends with other aesthetic clinics and things of that nature. Influencer marketing is really good in this case as well. So let's get down to the financials. What's the upfront cost for starting this business? So you're going to need equipment like IV stands. A lot of medical equipment is going to go into this. If you're interested in starting this business, contact me. I can get you the entire list of what you'll need, but all the equipment costs will run you roughly about $25,000, and that's inclusive of any necessary licensures, legal fees, things like that. $25,000 is more than enough to cover this initial expense. You may actually be able to do it for a fraction of that cost, but I budgeted about $25,000 just to give you some leeway depending on which market, what part of the world that you're residing in. Again, you're going to need 6 months of salaries. So let's say if you're a nurse that you've hired, 6 months. Let's say if it's in the States, a nurse is roughly about maybe $40,000-$50,000 a year. So let's just say half a year, maybe they're doing part-time, $20,000 set aside for their salary, and then travel expenses for initially launching, I'd say another $5,000. So that roughly makes your $50,000 initial capital expenditure expense. Okay, now the revenue. The first few months are going to be slow. So really is going to hone in on how you market the business through social media, leveraging other clinics, your existing friends and family, things like that. That's really going to launch this market. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Google SEO is going to be pristine, especially if you're in a high touristy area. So have the proper website, social media presence set before you launch, and really hone in on SEO for this business. After a few months, I do not see why it's not impossible to be doing at least 50 patients a week, which, let's say if you're operating 6 days out of the week, that's roughly about 8 or 9 patients a day. Definitely doable, especially after you scale. You can hire another nurse, so it's split it between 2 people, 3, 4, 5 patients a day, more than doable. So with 50 patients a week, now a typical IV drip, depending on what you're doing, if it's just simple vitamins, immunity booster, let's say NAD for, let's say, anti-aging, ketamine maybe. This is going into the more technical aspects, especially if you're a physician, you can easily do this as well. $150 to about $500 per drip in the States. And these prices are roughly about the same in Europe and here in Dubai as well. Roughly, we're going to average, let's just say $200 per patient. Now, if you're doing about 50 patients a week, that's about $10,000 a week, and 4 weeks in a month, it's about $40,000 in revenue. Now, salaries, inventory costs, insurance, marketing, I'd say budget roughly about $19,000 for that. That's turning $21,000 a month. 21,000 times 12 months is $252,000 a year. Again, you broke your $250,000 mark. And this business, once you're doing those numbers, I'd say even easily 6 months in, you can offer additional services with us. It doesn't have to be just IV drips. You can do injections, you can do facials. There's a whole host of things you can add to it, really catering to that med spa experience. If you have enough customers or patients, open a brick and mortar, offer even additional patients. There's oxygen therapy that you can add. That's an untapped market in a lot of major cities. That's another one that you can offer, and sky's the limit. And then you could easily go in that corporate environment, open more locations, and really scale this business as well. Especially before I get to my ultimate $0 startup venture that generates you over $250,000 a year, please go ahead and press that like and subscribe button down below. Thanks. You don't even have $50,000. You just finished high school. You're contemplating going to college or not. Or maybe you just want out. You're sick of the corporate environment. You have your day job, but you don't like it. You want to try something else that's something a little bit more at your own pace. Try this one. Power washing. Power washing business is something that can be literally started with zero upfront capital. How do you do that? I mean, the beauty of it is you don't need anything. You can start it with literally $0 upfront. And how do you do this is set your social media, set your website, set all of this, and then you're going to start off something simple as door knocking, going around your neighborhood. Now, this business does really well in like dusty environments. So let's say if you're in Arizona, this business will do really well. Any place where there maybe it rains a lot. So depending on your market, these businesses do really well. But let's just say you're living in an environment, it's dusty, you want to get started on something like this, and you go door knocking. You start building rapport and offering them what services you have. Most people, it's like maybe in your community, there's no soliciting allowed or whatever the case may be, but there are ways around it. it where you can legally ask people, offer your services, build rapport with them. Maybe if they're not interested, just by building that rapport, that person might know someone else that might be interested in your services. Once law of averages come into play here, let's say you knock on 100 doors, one person's going to say yes. Can't stress this enough. Let's say maybe not in the first 100, maybe the first 200, but then the next 100 you might get like 6. It scales. The more people you do, the more you'll close people. So now let's just say, for example, you closed a person, went around your neighborhood, you knocked on, let's say, 150, 200 doors, and now you have 3 people that are interested in getting your service. They've even placed a deposit down. So now you're going to take that deposit money, and then knowing that now you have clients, you have customers that are ready and are willing to pay for this, basically validated the business here. You're going to take that money and buy your equipment. Power washer, some firm, let's say if you're in the States, Home Depot, not very expensive. $100, $200 for a good power washer, some cleaning supplies, some microfiber towels, or some sponges, squeegees, things like that. You offer under $500, you can buy all the equipment that you need. Now, a typical power wash business do roughly one power wash job will cost somewhere between $300 to about $1,000, depending on the size of the home. Affluent neighborhoods, definitely, you can charge them more. You have bigger house, people with more disposable income, they'll pay, especially if it makes their house stand out from all the rest. Another selling point for this is talking about the benefits of getting this done, because it actually prevents against the deterioration of the paint, helps the home last longer. It also safeguards them from spending on maintenance, of having to redo their home because of erosion. Because of erosion, maybe their paint might deteriorate quicker, and now they have to repaint their whole house because of all the chips and everything. There's various sales tactics that talk about the benefits of this. Let's just say, competitively speaking, $500 for something that takes about maybe an hour or 2 of your time on a Saturday afternoon. You do 3 homes, that's $1,500. And this is one business that's definitely scalable, because then you can offer multiple services in addition to that. If it's power washing, you can do car washing, you can do landscaping, and you don't even have to do it yourself. This is something that's a teachable skill that you can hire a couple of high school kids to do it for you, roughly minimum wage. So let's just say, for example, you went around your neighborhood, you closed 3 people, 4 people, you have generated about $2,000 of revenue in one Saturday afternoon. You hired 2 guys to do those 4 homes in one day. Now, if you're doing $2,000 and from 4 homes, you go around the neighborhood through referrals within just a few short months, you should be doing easily do at least about 20 homes a week. 20 homes a week will generate roughly about $10,000 a week. That's about $40,000 a month. Now, taking care of cleaning supplies and salaries for your 2 employees, that would roughly break it down to, let's just say, half, because you're paying them supplies. You're basically building the business, buying better equipment, things like that. There's more actual expenses in just the commutes, because gas prices right now are expensive. Against all of that insurance, half of it goes into overhead costs, but generating still well over somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000 a month in profit. So if you're doing, let's say, an average $25,000 a month, that's again $300,000 a year with just a simple power washing business. Imagine that. And this is one business that private equity firms love. So after 18 months to 24 months of running this business, they will easily buy this business from you for at least 6 to 7x your profit. So let's say if you're doing $300,000 a year times 6, you just made $1.8 million in less than 24 months. Again, these are 3 businesses that you can start with little to no capital. And again, don't pick it for the money. Do something that aligns with your vision, something that you would enjoy doing, enjoy growing. Let me know in the comments below and see what you think. Do you like this, or do you have any other suggestions on what other businesses that you would say are really good to start right now, especially for someone that with little to no experience or is stuck in a rut and wants to get out of the corporate environment and wants to start something new. If you guys love the content, or if you want to see more like this, please go ahead and press that like and subscribe button down below. Thank you and goodbye.